Okay.
Well, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce Lila. Lila, along with Annalisa and me, founded this group, which has been meeting together for some time now. She's an immensely experienced and erudite speaker for us. She has a practice-based PhD in dance on screen from Middlesex University, in which she used experimental film, dance, modern and contemporary art, multimedia, and cyber performance, and including myth, ritual, women and spirituality. She has an MA in independent film and video, an MPhil from Central St. Martin's. I could read all of this, which I have. She's a supervisor for the Aleph Trust and leads spirituality and the imaginal course, so on. But I think significantly with Lila, we have one of these people who, like many of us, don't really fit the world as it stands at the moment, because she brings together so many different aspects of life, bringing together movement and visual art, bringing together spirituality in that, bringing together the modern and the myth and the ritual, looking at the role of women and gender in this area. And not surprisingly, because of this, she's a published author, theorist, a technoetic artist, and a screen choreographer. And I'm not going to take any more of your valuable time, Lila, because I'm sure we're going to have a wonderful time with you. I'm going to hand over to Lila Moore, who's going to present, as you can see very dramatically on the film, screen dance as a novel art form and a rite of passage. Over to you, Lila.
Thank you very much, June. In this talk, I will be presenting the topic of screen dance as a novel art form and rite of passage. This presentation is based on the practice aspect of my PhD in dance on screen. To begin with, I will provide some background information on the context of this practice-based research. After the introduction, I will spend the rest of the talk describing the ritualistic themes and metaphors embedded in Gaia mysterious rhythms. I will be showing short video clips from the film and images from the PhD thesis. I am unable to show long passages due to copyright restrictions. There are two versions to this screen dance, and I am showing clips from both versions. This project was integral to my growth as an artist and to my personal development or individuation process in Jungian terms. The academic aspect of this growth came about through my studies and initially from my creative work at Central St. Martin's, where I pursued a practice-based MA in film and progressed to a PhD after obtaining an MPhil. I was fortunate to have been chosen to be part of a unique program for artists and filmmakers at St. Martin's. I was selected based on a performative video that I co-created. This video was a result of the multimedia performances that I created and performed at the October Gallery in London in the late 1980s. Thanks to a London education grant, I was able to cover my fees. So on the left here, you can see an image from a live performance, and this is an image which was projected as part of the live performance, and I termed these images performed photography. I just want to say that one moment, please. I want to return to this because I want to emphasize the title of the video and live performance, Anima Urbana, the City Spirit, which already hinted on my fascination with spiritual themes, though at that point my work was intuitive. The title of my MA16 film and multimedia performance was The Prisoner and the Spirit, which also indicates my interest in the battle between matter and spirit. In my MA essay, I explored experimental dance and performance films made by women from a feminist perspective. I vividly remember the day in 1989 when I discovered the films of Maya Deren. It was a fated day, a fateful day. I will never forget, as I finally found what I had been looking for. Today, Maya Deren is recognized as a pioneer of women's cinema and experimental film, the innovator of choreo cinema or cine dance, an art form currently known as screen dance, and a significant film theorist. She is also regarded as an authority on Haitian voodoo. Uh, impo- what I feel is very important is that Maya Deren was film, the first female filmmaker in history to place her body and psyche, um, her mythologized feminine self, at the center of her films. She was the first woman to create a film about her internal world and act in it. So she continues to inspire and inform my work, and I've written about her in many articles. But the reason why she is important to this conversation, I mean, to this talk and presentation, is because my project, my research project, was linked to the BBC Dance for the Camera series, and this program was inspired by Maya Deren's concept of choreography for the camera. Um, it's important also to say, because I'm talking about the feminine in this presentation, that in the late 1970s, feminist artists and scholars rediscovered the work of Maya Deren, who was omitted from film history. I researched her work at Circles, the first women's film distribution organization in the UK, which was located at Four Corners in London. At the time, 16mm prints of her films were only available at Circles, and there was no video distribution of her work. Films that depicted choreography that could exist only on screen and could not be performed live were officially termed screen choreography in festivals and screenings. I have always been fascinated by the liminal space between live performance and the screen behind the performer, and the space between the viewer or performer and the screen. I have been exploring the alternate realities that screen imagery creates, and the integration of physical and immaterial dimensions in my multimedia performances. Later, and most recently, I developed this concept and presented it as double consciousness. It is described in my articles and works, but beyond today's presentation, I mention it because this is how my practice evolved. And screen dance was about the transition from live performance to screen. Here are a few images from my early multimedia performances and performed photography. This is how I eventually got to do this project. You know, there was a history behind it. And later on, when I completed my work was published and produced as a multimedia educational resource and distributed across many universities. And it's important to say that as part of the research, I had to master all aspects of film dance production. I learned a lot about film and video editing, which is crucial, as it is similar to dance or music notation. It is the editing that conveys the rhythms and the choreography in film. I also had to enter my film into the appropriate festivals and attend them in person. Two significant festivals selected film, the IMZ Dance in the Media in Germany and Dance on Camera Festival in New York. And it's worth mentioning that this film was considered a new hybrid art form 24 years ago. Okay, so in the abstract of my research, I argue that dance on screen is an autonomous hybrid art form with unique aesthetic qualities. I approach choreography in terms of its expression on screen, encompassing movement, performance, body language, object motion, natural events, and rhythms created by nature and technology. The moving body on screen is also utilized to express mythical journeys. My thesis traces the evolution of dance on screen as an art form originating from modern art and performance, acknowledging the primal act of performance, which is at the heart of contemporary art. So this is the list on screen. You can see the list of topics that I explored in detail, which I can't cover this evening. However, my thesis conclusion have stood the test of time as this art form has continued to evolve into cyberspace, cyber performance, virtual reality, and digital technology. And digital technology has made this artistic process more accessible to multidisciplinary artists, choreographers, performers, filmmakers, and more. So you can see the chapters really of my thesis. And I just want to say that it was when I did this work, it was before social media, before YouTube, before a video cameras. I mean, it was so difficult to get hold of a good video camera at that point. And it was very much on the verge where before digital video became that thing. So I had to deal with many limitations as part of this work. So in this presentation, I will now focus on only one aspect of the academic practice-based analysis. I am avoiding the technical and aesthetic aspect, which is a frame-by-frame, shot-by-shot, movement-by-movement analysis of the audiovisual text. And this is important. I want to clarify that the interpretive text was written by me after the film was made. And these interpretations are not final or set in stone. The meaning of the film is subjective and may vary depending on the viewer's personal experiences. I utilized a method called the metaphoric body, a powerful tool for personal growth and self-discovery, which I learned from the late Leah Bartal, who was a pioneer of holistic dance and movement therapy. Bartal co-wrote a book called The Metaphoric Body, which helped me to understand the imagery I created, even when I wasn't aware of its meanings. Initially, I approached choreography and visuals as part of a creative process guided by my intuition and inner visions. I was interested in the aesthetics, in making choreography for the screen. However, I discovered that the metaphoric body methodology can be applied in movement-based therapy and holistic movement workshops. Based on this film, a holistic movement specialist developed a movement workshop, and this lecture can be also part of a rite of passage through a movement workshop. Having to make a film as part of a research turned the research itself into an integral part of my lived experience and into a personal rite of passage. Working with dancers and performers on movement themes brought me closer to the core of the experiences and visions that I aspired to depict on screen. Looking for locations to film took me to different seashores on different continents. It led me to somatic interactions, from sensing the sea tides in my body and psyche to syncing with the rhythms of the sun and the moon and the flow of time, light, and darkness. The expression mysterious rhythms was inspired by Dion Fortune's book, The Sea Priestess. In the book, Morgan Le Fay, The Sea Priestess, performs a transformative rituals by mediating the rhythms of the earth, which are ruled by timeless goddesses and feminine cosmic powers. Although I received a grant for my film project, my budget was limited and I faced many obstacles that affected my script. The story I was portraying reflected my own limitations and my desire to break free and become who my soul longed to be. I needed not only practical assistance but also moral and spiritual guidance. One day, while browsing at the Atlantis bookshop near the British Museum, I stumbled upon an old copy of the novel The Priestess. The novel narrative deeply resonated with the themes and images of my film script. As I read passages from The Sea Priestess, I found renewed inspiration for my project and was guided in mysterious ways through synchronicities and chance encounters to find solutions and complete the film despite the challenges. The unfortunate stated that the book is a romance on the surface, but underneath it is a thesis centered on the theme that all women are Isis and Isis is all women. She also noted that this theme, along with the terms she used, have equivalents in modern psychology, especially in Jungian psychology. I quote short passages from it in relation to specific images and themes. The name Gaia was inspired by James Lovelock's Gaia hypothesis. I am the boundless, soundless, boundless, bitter sea. All tides are mine and answer unto me. Tides of the air, tides of the inner earth, the secret, silent tides of death and birth, tides of men's souls and dreams and destiny, Isis veiled, and Ea, Bina, G. There are two types of narratives, the story that occurs in our physical world and the invisible story that takes place inside us. Dreams, poetry, and creative expressions are often used to express the inward story. Poetry, in particular, holds a significant role as a primary outlet for conveying inner and often invisible experiences. I base this work on Maya Deren's vertical structure, which is, according to her, the poetic structure. And she explained it as follows. The distinction of poetry is in its construction, which is a vertical investigation of a situation. It delves into the ramifications of the moment, considers its qualities and depth, and is concerned with what it feels like or what it means rather than what is happening. A poem gives visible or auditory form to something that is invisible, such as a feeling, emotion, or the metaphysical content, of the moment. I've used this. Well, initially I I worked with it intuitively and later discovered it really and found that what I was doing is working with the vertical structure. And this is a very interesting also historical moment when Maya Deren presented this idea. She one second. Yeah, it was part of a symposium of poetry and film with renowned figures in the world of poetry, literature and experimental film, including Dylan Thomas and Arthur Miller. Unfortunately, her presentation was interrupted by the mockery she faced due to her gender. But that's another discussion. I decided to design the protagonist of Gaia using a red palette, which was challenging. I knew that gender issues might be involved, but I didn't realize how serious they would be. After the film was released, critics and viewers were divided into two camps. Some found the color red to be empowering and liberating, while others found it to be aggressive, irritating, and perhaps even sexually disturbing, though they didn't admit it. For me, red symbolizes the power of life, the red earth, and the goddess Isis, who was often depicted in red hues. I had several characters in mind, and their temperaments were expressed through different colors. I needed the red to balance the overwhelming presence of the blue sea and emphasize the element of the earth next to the element of water. I also wanted to give solar power to the feminine rather than portraying her as all water and passive. So these were the original storyboards. This is just one example, but there are more, where I was trying to imagine this character. Okay, so now I'm presenting the film, the actual film. It became, and this is actually taken from my thesis. I didn't add anything new to this presentation. The film begins with an invocation. That's the invocation scene. Earth, sea, and moon, and the invoking sound of a flute envelops a figure lying on a rock by the receding tide. The film opens with a shot of the Earth from space taken from the footage captured by the Space Shuttle Discovery mission in 1998. Now, at the time, such videos were not available, but I found it essential to use this footage to convey a sense of participation in the cosmic life of Gaia and the interaction of inner and outer space. The imagery, though manipulated and limited by the frame, depicts powerful and volatile elements. It's earth, sea, moon. And for me, it was the sound of the flute echoes the ancient message of the Delphic oracle, Know Thyself, or the call of awakening, which prompts the seeker to start the journey. And I just want to say that it was the musician Tim Wither who suggested starting the scene with a flute solo, which served as a call of awakening, setting the tone for the rest of the film. So I'm going to give you the woman on the rock is gradually revealed. She awakens and starts exploring her surroundings. She comes out of the wave. Let's watch part of the awakening scene. The protagonist is viewed in a context in which she but dissolves into and reflects the environment. Thus, her identity is an integral part of and reflects the natural world. She exists in a universe in which space and time are elastic notions, and in which the physical components of the environment can assume transparent and almost intangible qualities. The protagonist rite takes place within the duration of a day. There are 12 scenes, each representing an hour. Her activity makes that day unique. She exists only for that purpose and within a designated framework of time. She has no identity outside her role in the rite and does not exist in other dimensions of space and time. Therefore, she can be perceived as existing in an enclosed world and in a state of eternal present, an approach to the concept of time as an undivided, continuous phenomenon which spans beyond terrestrial limitation and Western currents, a Western cultural. Western culture's rational perception of time through the ticking clock. The movements of the protagonist in each scene are stylized to imply a ritualistic activity. I gave emphasis to her eyes, to this end movement around the eyes, drawing on an eye shape. The woman's eyes mirror the woman's self, her quest for understanding. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the goddess Maat was the all-seeing eye and the mother of truth. The universal mother word Ma was both the name of the goddess and the hieroglyphic eye. The eyes might be a message to pay attention to what it is that your unconscious sees. The eye as a symbolic image suggests a concern with issues related to women and feminine identity and could be a symbol for the self. Hence, the protagonist directs the attention of the viewer to comprehending the images intuitively rather than through intellectual reasoning. Her wave-like movements reflect the motion of the waves, lowering, rising, revolving, and progressing from the depth of the sea to the shore and back. The sea priestess said that she ruled over a kingdom that was neither material nor spiritual, but a strange moon kingdom of her own. In it moved ebbing, flowing, high water, never ceasing, always on the move. And these tides affected our lives. They affected birth and death and all the processes of the body. And this recalls Isadora Duncan's statement. My first idea of movement, of the dance, certainly came from the rhythm of the waves. Yeah, and this was certainly this was choreographed to imply these wave-like movements. I'm going to show this section. The process is described in the book The Sea Priestess, this process as a crucial step in making a powerful contact with the rhythms of life and the mysteries of the goddess. The protagonist of the book discovers that is healing from asthma by watching and sensing the moon and the tides. He says, I found that the more I dwelt on her, the more I became conscious of her tides, and my life began to move with them. Shells always remind me of spirals, and a spiral always intrigues me. Incidentally, I titled my MA essay on experimental dance and performance films by women, Spiral and Waves, and I wasn't really aware of everything that I'm sort of aware of now. I created a spiral model that shows the evolution of the art form and theory that combines film, dance, and performance from a feminist perspective. So it was intuitive, and this connection to the sea and to the spiral is also linked to Maya Deren, who was a priestess of Erzulie, the wooden goddess of the sea, and her bedroom was filled with shells and corals. Okay, wait, here it is. Okay. I expressed the spiral form in the scene of the woman with the shell, and the clip that I will show is from one of the versions, and on this one, I painted the spiral on the movements to show the spiral motion. The scene was also edited to recreate the spiral motion, so that we don't really need to paint on it, but I enjoy the process anyway. And spiral forms are archetypal patterns denoting the force of female creation and creativity. And okay, I'll show this scene. So this is the one, this is the shell, the same shell used in the film. I always have it with me. And the emphasis on hearing by aligning the ear and shell highlights the connection between the spiral shape of the shell, the spiral tube of the human ear, and the sensation of the body. A person's sense of the body is located in the ear's structure. Whoever dances understands the spiral. The natural dynamic of human movement is often studied in relation to spiral dynamics. According to Hindu belief, the mythic conch represent the primordial sound of creation, Om, the sound that created the universe. In Tibetan Buddhism, it is believed that the sound of the rite spiraling conch will tune with the movements of the sun, the moon, and the planets and stars in the universe. Here are a few images from the performed photography project that was connected to the screen dance and was inspired by the sea priestess.
Timeless, sightless, boundless, there's a sea. I am thy priestess, answer unto me. O thou that wast, before the earth was formed, Iha, La, Ji. The hour of the full moon tide draws near. Hear the invoking words, hear and appear. Isis unveiled, Iha, La, Ji. I am thy priestess, answer unto me.
The delicate balance which was established in the previous scenes between the protagonist and the environment is disrupted. Her interaction with the elements that surround her becomes confrontational. This is conveyed through a montage of images showing a disturbing exchange in which the protagonist is overpowered by the physical mass and the intensity of the landscape. The landscape recalls the isolation of the protagonist as a single figure in this vast place, and the soundtrack adds a sense of mystery. So the stylized movements relating to the eyes are now mingled with fear, and the ambient sound by Tim Wither colors the imagery with an atmosphere of suspense. It provides the sonic dimension of the protagonist's journey. There are sort of low frequencies of earthquake and okay, so there is this movement, the raised arms gesture is reminiscent of archaic depictions of the great goddess, and it's repeated more than once in the film. And I must say that it evolved, the choreography evolved without even the intention to do it. It just happened when I was creating the work. Also, there is those moments where the image freezes, and in Maya Deren's films, the frozen image represents death and the mysteries of life. It also serves as a statement about film language and ritual, because in ritual, time is transformed and inverted. The image of a woman turning into a rock can signify both the end of life and the potential for transformation and new life. Rituals often involve both endings and new beginnings, representing a sense of renewal. I perceive time as elastic concept, meaning it can be stretched, slowed down, and speeded up. Time can be frozen to a point where time stop, um, and it can be manipulated so that the past, the present, and the future are in constant interaction rather than perceived as separate linear units. Okay, next, the protagonist is her confrontation with the environment leads to an inner conflict with different aspects of herself. This scene can be interpreted as a metaphor for the struggle with limiting inner and external factors that affect our body and mind. The protagonist's movements are restricted, symbolizing the physical and inner limitations she feels. The rope tying her represent imprisonment within the environment, which can overpower and destroy her. She becomes frantic and moves erratically. The beginning of the scene shows two identical versions of herself pulling in opposite directions, representing her divided identity and state of mind. As they collide, an inner conflict arises. Well, this scene could be seen as a metaphor to a situation in life where there is a disconnect between what we feel and what we do. It is the struggle when our actions contradict our feelings. It is only when she loses her conscious mind that her invisible, intuitive self takes over, and as a result, she breaks free. She becomes spiritual or material, like a reflection. So the woman's reflection is dancing on the waves and patterns of light. She splits herself. She splits into three reflection, briefly moving in unison and dissolving in back into one. Observing the shallow and calm sea waves by the shore and the movement of sunlight on the waves gave rise to this image. Whilst reflecting on the movement of water and light with a sense of wonder, I noticed my reflection. I recorded the image with video camera and a still camera and drew my impressions as a reference to the script here. That's the initial idea. The process involved in making the image relied on weather conditions such as sunlight and wind during the filming, and eventually dependent on the editing and post-production. Finally, the image of the dancing reflection was sonically colored by sound, which added rhythm and emotion tone to the depiction. My main intention in this scene was to use images taken directly from nature to create a choreographic event on screen, and by employing elements uh, uh, from the natural environment. it was a comment on the transient state of the elements, including the human body in space and time. Okay, so I'm going to show a clip. The division of the reflection into three intangible feminine figures can metaphorically denote the archetype of the three faces of the goddess. For example, the three faces of Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft. Hecate, who traverses the threshold in between nature and culture, protects the invisible apparitions, those unseen by others. Hecate assists her devotees to navigate a path and will in the world. It is a motif that can be found also in Maya Deren's film. Next, the woman is seen walking through a passage between rocks. Time appears to be slowed down and suspended as she, motionless and then animated back into life. So there is a comment here about her physical existence, which is fragile and brief in an environment shaped by the passing ages. When she covers her eye with the palm of her hand and reaches towards the sun, there is a sense of integration of inner insight and physical sight. This process is an integral part of her quest for inner illumination, as commented by Jung. The sun, which brings the light out of the unfathomable darkness, is that of intuition, the function which, as taught by sudden illumination, apprehends the origins and tendencies of things. So it's suddenly this illumination, inner illumination, seeing something, first being blind and then seeing something. In this scene, the next one, space and time, in this scene, the protagonist is absent, but metaphorically, she could be present as an invisible observer. It may be her inner vision or consciousness that the viewer sees reflected on the screen. As a metaphor, the picture corresponds with the feminine principles and goddesses, which are often associated with vases, clay, and water. The picture reflects the changing environment, but it is also firmly located in space despite the changing landscape. The picture is a symbol of stability in an ever-changing world. It is an archetype of the feminine that the protagonist can rely on. Metaphorically, the picture as a container made of clay is temporarily replacing the protagonist's physical body, allowing other association to filter through space and time. So the picture used in the film and the performed photography project was given to me by an elderly woman. Yeah, the picture is over a century old and is typical of pictures used by women in the Mediterranean region. I was working with this object, which I found meaningful. So the next scene is woman with picture. From the dark sea, the woman emerges carrying the pitcher, and into the shimmering sea she dissolves, ebbing and flooding, building up and breaking down. I will show the clip. The transformation of the protagonist in and by water is symbolic of personal transformation. Any process of transformation that aligns with nature processes involves losing, releasing, and repeating cycles. Taoist belief suggests that one can only become a sage by letting go of emotions and preconceived ideas, emptying oneself, and having the courage to go down into the water. The protagonist movement in this scene is inspired also by the swastika symbol, which is the oldest known symbol to humanity. It was associated with release of creative wheeling energy, but it gained an abusive status during the 20th century. However, in the context of the feminine principle, the swastika is a redeeming and balancing symbol. It is a conventionalized human form with two arms and legs, and it symbolizes also the union of male and female principles. It represents the two complementary phases of breathing, going out from and returning to the center, beginning and end, and is suggested as a version of the labyrinth and water in movement. So this is actually what you see. You see two movements here, one of the swastika and the other one movement which was inspired by images of the goddess Nut. And interestingly, and that was not planned, the music which the soundtrack for this scene was composed by Sean Austin, and when he composed um, this particular piece, he was thinking of this particular goddess. This is what he had in mind. So it was just something that wonderfully worked. Um, Another symbol that I'm using in the next scene is the five-pointed star, which is a shape that occurs in natural things. Recently, scientists discovered that the sea stars, also known as starfish, have head-like regions in each of their limbs, rather than just one head at the center of the bodies. These strange creatures have more genetic similarities with humans than we might think. In ancient Egypt, the goddess Sopdet was associated with the five-pointed star. Sopdet is also the name given to the star Sirius, the bright star in the visible night sky. Well, it's the star which is most visible in the night star. The scene was created based on the star concept here in the storyboard in the original drawing. Well, it was planned for three women, and I actually rehearsed it with three women, but the final piece was with single protagonist. Okay. More information a little bit about this scene. The woman is interacting with the star structure that represents the idea of the human body as it is in tune with nature. The five angles of the star stands for the five elements, each representing an aspect of nature. A concept based on Chinese philosophy dating back more than 4,000 years. The protagonist movements inside the structure depicts an important stage in her rite of passage and transformation. It's a shape that can generate many meanings. And for example, in ancient hieroglyphics, it has the meaning of rising upwards towards the point of origin. The portrayal of the protagonist with relation to the star is inspired by the mythic and ritualistic notion of the four elements of earth, water, fire, and air, which represent the elements of physical life and their material and spiritual qualities. The fifth element represents the spirit, which is perceived as innate in nature. The interaction with the stars, a symbolic object, demonstrate a gradual process of transformation. The transformative process represented by the simple shift from lying down to sitting and standing up involves three intermediate stages expressed through movements and visual metaphors. In the first stage, the protagonist releases blocked energy and expresses her willingness to continue with the process as she opens her tightly crossed arms in slow motion. Metaphorically, the image of her lying on the star and sand with her eyes shut suggests that she is led by an inner vision. When she opens her folded arms to the sides of her chest, she is metaphorically opening her heart. The gesture of the folded arms over the chest recalls images of the mummified dead in ancient Egypt. Opening the arms is thus another metaphoric gesture suggesting a transition from death to life and a state of mind essential for transformation. In the second stage, sitting on her knees, the protagonist movements center on her eyes and heart, hence denoting the importance of sight, internal and external, and the need for devotion and heartfelt action. The third stage begins with the tracing of the star in the air, creating an association with an esoteric and pagan ritual form known as the banishing pentagram ritual, designed to banish inner and external imbalances. So she's actually doing it if you follow the movement through a metaphoric process of integration with the five-pointed star. The protagonist's physical self finds its roots and strengths in the four elements. The fifth element, as a metaphor, reflects her desire to explore her identity and origins beyond physical existence. Stars are related to the soul. The soul star generates the person's inspiration, creativity, and enthusiasm. And there's a beautiful passage here from the Sea Priestess. I am the star that rises from the sea, the twilight sea. I bring the dream of tides of destiny, the tides that ebb and flow and ebb again. These are my secret. These belong to me. The next scene depicts the finding of the key of life, a symbol that intrigued me. The paintings from Nefertari tomb in Luxor depicts the goddess Isis giving the Ankh the key of life to Queen Nefertari. The image on the left is from a recent project incorporating mythical motifs. So, in this scene, the protagonist discovers the Ankh, a symbol attributed to Egyptian goddesses and an emblem of femininity, which also stands for life and living. A symbol like the Ankh can assume a mediatory or reflective role between two states of reality, the day-to-day existence or temporal and historical life, and the imaginal realm of myths and archetypes. The role of symbols expressed through visual art, dance, music, literature, and play depends on the context. For example, in Taoist art, there was nothing that was not symbolic. And every symbol was a window onto a realm that is greater than the symbol itself and greater than the person who perceives it. Jung described symbol as living psychic forces that affect the soul. Likewise, the organs affect the body. Holding the ankh, the protagonist achieves a state of resolution as she moves freely through the environment, unbounded by the law of gravity. However, she always lands back on the ground. So this is the gravity-free scene. This dance sequence is edited in such a way that there is a subtle interplay of different speeds and surfaces. This creates the illusion that the ground is moving in a different direction from her, or that she is staying in the air longer than gravity allows. Although she cannot resist gravity and the laws of nature indefinitely, the Anki unites her two selves, the inner and external, the physical and the imaginal. During the final dance of completion, these two selves fuse into one being. She pauses, holding the ankh with her arms raised in a gesture often associated with ancient goddesses and with the hieroglyph of the eternal soul. This is the movement. Uh, the eye would not be able to see the sun if in a manner it were not itself a sun, said Plotinus. So this is the last scene. We see the protagonist placing the ring of the ankh over her eye. As she does this, physical eye and the symbolic eye integrate. In the background, we catch a glimpse of a planetary landscape. This scene is metaphorical as the sun and the hieroglyph of the eye of the sun, which is the mythic eye of Horus, can represent gaining wisdom through deep knowing or enlightenment. The light of the sun symbolizes the ability to see and understand, which means that the protagonist's rite of passage and transformation is reached its final stage. She has gained insight into her mythic life and identity and is now aware of the physical and intangible realms of her existence and their importance. The eye, the sun, and the ankh visually integrate into a metaphor of inner illumination. The mythic eye of the sun god Horus is a poetic reminder of the physical sun as the source of light, life, and consciousness. The eye of Horus in this film represents the future of the protagonist as an archetype. Dolores Ashkoff Norwichi said that it will be a woman who will land on the moon in the 21st century. This is not just about science and technology. The Eye of Horus is an archetypal symbol of our evolution as a species. When we work with the symbol or experience it through art and ritual, we activate it and receive its wisdom. The symbol and its hidden archetypal pattern remains alive for as long as it is needed and for as long as it is activated. Okay, so I just conclude. Just after Gaia, I decided to make another screen dance, and this time the quest follows the journey of a young male dancer who seeks to understand himself through a visionary quest in the desert. It's like I worked with the feminine, so now I wanted to work with a masculine and the feminine. So that was another project. After which I continued developing my work into cyber performance. And I'm just showing a few images from more recent work and projects. I participated in many conferences and also exhibitions, curated exhibitions in recent years, very recent. So the two main concepts and aesthetics that guide my work are screen dance and technoetics, which I haven't discussed yet. I am excited to share that my current work will be presented at various conferences and exhibitions starting this summer. Okay, so I look forward to sharing more with this group in the future. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen. I appreciate it and welcome any comments or questions you may have.
Well, thank you so much, Lila, for giving us both immense insight, but also immense beauty. Now, have we got any questions that are immediately? Yes, Louis, unmute.
Well done, very well done, Lila. It's amazing how Jung is used, you know, in every aspect, even hybrid performances today.
Yeah.
You mentioned the eye, the vessel, which in Malta, it is so rich. We have boats, actually, we call them vessels in Maltese. And they have an eye painted on each boat, which is also symbolical, as you mentioned so clearly. Yes, and the spiral as well. The spiral is universal. Jung elaborated so much on this symbol, and you explained it so well. Very well done. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. I mean, the entire script started with a scene with a spiral, and I still have it because I wrote different scripts and I ended up doing this one. But I still have it, and I still want to do it. You know, in the future, it's a very, very powerful symbol. And you're right. I mean, you can use it with so many different technologies. And actually, nowadays, it's easier than it was when I was doing it. And I can do a lot more now than I was able to do then. It's still, you know, you need to start somewhere.
Yes, yes. And in dance, I presume that it could be, you know, what do you think of this AI business, artificial intelligence?
I will give another lecture about it, or another talk, because I am presenting a paper in EVA London about AI. I mean, in July, and I created work with it, which I think you may find very interesting, and I will share it also with you. But it's not for now, you know, I mean.
Thank you.
No, I think, Lila, we have to pass on to Peter, who I think's hand went up first. So I don't think it's not Peter who's going to ask the question. Is it Peter?
Hi, it's me. Me and Peter have come tonight, and we have collaborated a lot with similar themes. As Lila said, we were extremely excited to come tonight, and I found listening to Lila's work very relaxing and inspiring. And I think bringing goddess consciousness to people at this time is so important. The work is very beautiful, and we'd love to come and see if you have any exhibitions in London
Yeah.
or in the West, we would certainly love to come and see them. So yeah,
I hope it's going to happen in the not too far future. Yeah, I really want this to happen. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk more.
Thank you.
Yeah, June Baxter Moore's book, Acrobats of the Gods, as well.
Yes, I'm
It's very
familiar.
interesting, talking about what the previous speaker said about Jung. I think that is an incredible book that really mixes them things up, because she was actually a performer as well and a Jungian psychologist. So thank you, Lila, and hopefully we'll see you at your live show.
Yeah, and yes, I'm familiar with the book, and actually it is in the references.
Oh, of course.
Lovely. Hand over to Sian.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It was incredible, and it was incredibly inspiring. And I think it's just as relevant and meaningful today as it was when you produced it. It's just incredible, all the symbolism, and just blew me away. Sorry, you want to say something?
No, I'm listening to you. I mean, I think it's very interesting what you said about the timing, because I felt that when I was doing it, it was, well, a little bit ahead of its time. Because although it was selected and it was shown in many venues, but I still wasn't able to discuss these themes like I did today. Really, I mean, that's why I really wanted to do this presentation, and I love, talking about modern art and contemporary art and aesthetics. I mean, because this is where I really come from. But at the same time, I wanted to use this platform, to discuss what is very, rarely discussed. And I do find that the younger generation, now could resonate with these ideas more than my generation, which was rather cold.
I mean, it's incredible, absolutely. And I loved, from a music perspective, because as you know, I'm a music therapist.
Yeah.
I loved the opening with the flute, because it's a breath instrument, and breath is, breathing is the most intimate relationship we have, our insides, our deep insides, with the outside world. So breath and any wind instruments, I think, are just so symbolic of that inner outer world, and connecting the two. And the natural, the way you used the natural instruments, the wood, and it sounded like a wooden xylophone at one stage, and mixed it with the synths and the more contemporary sounds, was just incredible. It was just, it was, the whole thing just blew me away. I loved it.
Thank you. It's very encouraging to hear that. And I did work with 3 musicians, and they were just right. It just happened, I was, as mentioned before, I was seeking and seeking and seeking. I mean, I don't know, it took so long until I find the right situations. But, well.
Thank you. Annalisa would like to ask something too. Can I just ask, Peter, do you still want to ask a question as well? Or is your hand just stuck up?
Okay, thanks. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you,
okay.
Peter.
Over to Annalisa.
Yeah, I've written down a series of questions. They're not necessarily related, but I'll just ask them, and then we see where the conversation goes. So some are like more technical, if you like. For example, I was curious to know who directed the video.
Me.
So you were directing, and so did you hire a dancer for? Is it something? So it's a separate.
But it's not like that. It's not exactly the way it is. I mean, it started, I worked with a group of dancers for almost a year. I've got all the videos of the rehearsals. I came up with the choreography and tried it with different dancers. And there were so many variations
Mhm.
to this choreography, and but eventually I had to come up with something, you know, and because I was doing a PhD and they wanted me to to reach a conclusion, and so due to very practical reasons, really, I ended up with whatever I ended up with the person I ended up with, but she didn't create the dance. She had a video with a choreography already made, and she basically did it. I mean, that's in a way, if you would ask me, I would have preferred to work with the people I initially rehearsed the dance, but it was impossible for very different reasons. So it's my choreography, but I also worked with dancers. And I directed it, I choreographed it, and I can even say to you that I decided on the editing, and I learned editing now. I edit everything myself almost, and I mean, the editor didn't come up with any ideas. It was my job. I had to do it because it was my project. It was, it was my PhD, and I had to create a very particular. And and not just that. Every time I did a section, like I did a version and edited it, I went back to university and sat with my supervisors, and they were giving various critique, and sometimes we didn't agree with one another, and sometimes we did, but I did learn a lot. It was very difficult, very frustrating, a lot of hard work, but I learned a lot from it. Now I don't, to be honest, now, of course, I mean, about the editing, it was fascinating because I went to so many production companies in the process of making the film, because I also had another project which I didn't make yet. I still want to make it, but I went with these ideas to production companies, and I talked to different producers of special effects, producers, editors, and they gave me really good advice. And I actually followed it. And they told me, whenever you can create an image, which, without making it too artificial, it's actually the best. I mean, that's the advice that I got then. So there was very little, yeah, very little, but there was very little digital technology involved. I mean, I had to edit on a digital machine, of course, because it was a broadcast quality production. I mean, I filmed on broadcast quality video. And the thing is that nowadays it doesn't exist. Nobody's using beta anymore. But then it was almost like the best compromise, the best something that I was able to afford, really. It was about the budget as well. I mean,
You've got more questions, Annalisa?
Well, actually, she answered most of them, but because I was really interested in the creative process.
Yeah. I mean, it's very interesting, and I didn't talk about it really. I mean, in this presentation, because I did, because the creative process is, of course, it's the most interesting part, really. I mean, but I didn't think that people here would be interested in hearing about how I edit this movement with.
Well, no, without getting too technical, what's interesting though is how the creative process happens.
Yeah, and also about the creative process. But what was interesting about what I did today was almost the opposite of what I stated. And not only that, I had a problem when I was writing the thesis, because I said, well, you can't really express in words images that you create. It's almost unnatural to do what I did today. but I wanted to do it anyway, well, it's because it's an aspect of it, but it's not all of it. Because the way I created it was non-linear image making, starting with images and emotion and developing a theme completely through non-linear poetic process. But instead of using words, I've been working with images, and the script was non-verbal. I mean, it was just images and movements, and also ideas. And then there was a stage of how to film it, and it is written in terms of camera angles. And it was actually calculated because I knew I had to edit it. So I was thinking about camera angles and where the camera is going to be and how to film it short and etc. Because once you film everything, then you can start editing. And you need to have the right material to edit.
Annalisa, is that, I wanted to ask one more question before we close.
Oh, is it time already? Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Then I would like to go to Ken's the message on the chat. It seems really interesting, but I don't know if we
Oh,
have
really? I mean, I didn't see. 1 second, please.
I would look at it because he
Yes,
also put 2 video links, but I don't think we'll have time to watch them.
It seems how to explain, but this is example of Chinese old. Oh, wow. Thank you. I'm going to have to read it properly. I mean, there's a place to download it,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yes. If I could, I want to ask you about dance from East Asian culture, because almost all Japanese dance and even so old dance and modern dance are group dance, collective people
Okay.
create a group, and so almost all group shows a coherence. That perfect coherence creates a spirituality for those who want to feel that spirituality.
I can reply. I want to reply because we don't have much time about the decision to work with one person. It's also I don't think I talked about it, but because I didn't have enough time. But this work, in terms of style, is inspired by. It's not inspired. It's part of a tradition of film ritual, visionary filmmaking, American experimental film, and there is a genre where the film is led by one protagonist who is being initiated and interacting with different strange symbols and archetypes and things. And this is usually non-verbal, and he or she are moving or dancing, but the center is one person. So it could be that it is a Western thing, you know. It could be, but I had a version with 3 women, and I couldn't do that. But I don't feel as if I missed now I don't feel as if I missed anything. There's always other options. But then the next film that I made, which I with the men in the desert. So this is not alone. There is sort of interacting with another woman and basically 2 women. So that's more of a group. Yeah.
Let this be the time of a mighty look at that document.
I think that the last question I have, and you don't need to answer it fully, is about the 3 figures. The goddess and her 3 manifestations, traditionally, the maid, the mother, and the crone. I'm slightly influenced by the fact that I'm just setting off on a poetry weekend on women's poetry, looking at the figure of the crone. And I wonder if you'd thought I mean, we have the aged earth being portrayed by a very youthful and easy to move body. I wondered if you'd thought of doing a similar project with a crone's body.
You know, when I did it, I was very young, so it was natural for me to work with young people. You know what I mean? It's just that's what you do.
It wasn't a critique. It was just, I would love to see something of this kind done with the aging body or even the aged body, and so on, to represent the aging of the earth and the notion of the three figures, you know, having a child and a young woman and an aged woman, the three figures of the goddess. And I suppose it's reflecting my age, Lila. You know.
No. It's okay. It's okay. No, no. It's interesting. It's really interesting idea what you just said. I mean, I'll think about it.
Do. Because I think we have no more time to discuss it because we're running to the end of it. And thank you for a very inspiring session. I did put in the chat also that those of you who are interested in music, that coming up on the 25th, 26th, and 27th, the 3 days online, with I think we've got about 130 people and 30 papers from all over the world.
Wow.
And it's all online, so you can beam in whenever you want to, and that will include similar things in music to what Lila has discussed, and so on. So do join us. I don't think, Annalisa, that we've got a date for the next meeting of this.
The next, 1 second, please. The next meeting will be with Sean Brown. She left because she had to go. She was here, and we need to. She gave me dates, so we need to.
So we've got the person, but not the date.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. It's terrific. And you'll be on the mailing list and we'll be able to find that date to move this area in. It's such an exciting project. And thank you for both informing us, exciting us, inspiring us today, Lila. It was a wonderful example of how to present material, which is, as you quite rightly say, I often say when I write music, you know, why would I write it in words if I write it in music if I thought I could write it in words? And that's always the question around all artistic presentations, really. But I mean, to be able to speak so beautifully about it, I think was extremely well done with the wonderful images. So I think all of us here, and Sean, who's had to leave, are very, very grateful to you for an inspirational presentation. So let us show our hands either in digital form or in real embodied form. So thank you so much, everybody. I hope you're duly inspired by this, and we'll have an inspirational evening. Thanks for Lila's beautiful work. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, bye. Bye-bye.